Hello, Mr. Mesco here, um, with a short lesson on this activity about data literacy. It really means how can we how can we read these graphs and tell a story with it? So in today's skills, a little bit of observation, a little bit of interpretation. Observe, interpret. First and foremost, I have to say you do have to pay attention to the details. You will notice in here in our first graph, there are these two labels. They correspond to the two colors that you see in the graph. Hey, there's green. Hey, there's blue. Green corresponds to this. This is what we called our legend. And then blue corresponds to this. What does TEMP stand for? Well, this says climate. And if you notice here, it says climate zones studied. So a group of scientists, a group of scientists, I paused the video for a little bit, called the Zoological Society of London. These are a group of people or scientists who study animals, anything related to animals, believe that we have been losing animals for the past 40 years. That's what they believe. Now we have to see if that is correct. And this will take us to our last question, or second to last. Do you think that they are correct? You have to give some evidence. Well, they believe that losing populations of animals has been much worse than what we previously thought. In fact, they think that the populations have gone down 50%, that out of all the animals that they studied, we now have 50% less. We have half of those animals. In other words, if we started with 1 million animals, we now have 500,000. And they studied 2,500 species from the years 1971 to 2008. Although they did start at 1970, the recording began at 1971. And so they went to these two climate zones. What that means is, if you look at around the world, there are different areas that have different climates, right? Some of them are cold, some of them are hot, some of them are somewhere in the middle. And so they studied the temperate zone. That means the green area, all the animals in this area, and they studied all the animals in the red zone, the tropical area. Why those areas? I don't know, but that's where they specialize. That's where they focus on. And so in those areas, let's say one of them lands in the Amazon forest, and that's in the tropical zone right here. And in a jungle, like the Amazon rainforest, there's not only water, but there's also land. Well, they studied the animals in these areas, or in these zones of the world, and within those zones, they studied the animals that are in fresh water, such as lakes, ponds, rivers, streams, marine animals, those that are found in the ocean, so around these areas, all this blank space or white space, and they also, of course, studied animals that live on land, terrestrial animals. So let me walk you through some of the most frequently asked questions here. Number one, that's up to you. What do you see? What do you see? Colors, labels, data going up or down, whatever you want to put there, that's fine. Now, how many years of data are shown in the visual? Meaning, when did they begin and when did they end recording their data, and take the range. How many years did they do this for? Each one of these dots represents a year that they were studying this. So in 1 year, they went and they studied all the animals and they looked at the populations. How many deer? How many bears? How many this? And then they did the same thing the next year. Please don't go counting all these dots. Be smart. Take the moment when they started, the year that they ended, and then take the range. How many years of data do we have in this graph? Now, what year is the base year against which population change has been measured? When did they begin recording. Let me tell you a quick story. I play a game called Catan. It's a board game, and my family and I, my wife, my son, myself, we play all the time. I have been in a winning streak for the past 2 days. I think like 3 days. But it's only until today that we began saying, we're going to start keeping track of the points. So guess what? Today I won one more time. And so they went ahead and they put 1 point on the scoreboard. But the rest, all my previous wins don't matter. They don't count because it is today that we started taking points or recording the points. So what is the base year? When did the scientists begin to compare everything to? When did they begin recording? This named the 2 major tropical zones. 1, 2, 3, and 4 all refer to this. What are the 2 tropical? What are the 2 climatic zones? I think I misspoke there. Climatic zones. Hey, look at that. Climate zones studied. Look at this plot. What are the 2 climate zones that we were studying in the entire world, or that these scientists from London were studying? Next, if you take those, remember, those zones around the world, those zones have fresh water, such as lakes, rivers, ponds. They also have land, where animals also live, and they have the oceans, or the sea, where animals also live. Different animals live in these different areas. And so we can split those zones into, okay, tropical zone in Brazil, fresh, like lakes in Brazil, land in Brazil, or the ocean in Brazil. It's not in Brazil, but here, let me show you. But rather, the ocean that is next to Brazil. You'll see Brazil right here. I hope it's large enough for you to see it. Don't look at the size of Brazil. But there's an ocean here, and so these scientists are studying the animals that are in the rivers and the lakes, the streams. They're studying the animals that are on land, and they're studying the animals that are in the ocean, because they're all different types of animals. Now think about this. There's a hurricane. Which animals would be most affected? So they're studying to see which animals are affected, which ones are not. Do some of them reproduce more than others? Do some of them die? So what are the 3 major habitats which average annual population change in displaced individuals? In this graph, what are the 3 major habitats? Look at or use your observation skills. If you see they are incomplete, wink wink, hint hint, nudge nudge, go ahead to the top of the document. You'll see them in full writing. Now, let's go back to climate zones. The zones around the world. Remember, temperate versus tropical. Which climate zone chose a negative average, meaning it's overall going down? And this one is probably one of the most requested or asked questions. So I think we'll end, we're almost done actually. So take a look at both graphs. Which habitat? So remember, what are the habitats? Our options are freshwater, marine, and terrestrial. In the tropical zone are hit the worst. Well, first of all, identify the tropical zone. In this area, which data, which colors, or which trends represent the tropical zone? Now, once you identify those 3 lines, switch over to your right, and those 3 lines resemble these same 3 lines. This graph is the same as this graph, but with different labels. It's either, the zone, the area of the earth that is being studied, or the particular setting, the niche, the habitat in which animals live. So tropical, out of the tropical, out of this area, which animals were affected the most? Was it the ones in the ocean? Let's go to Brazil. Was it the ones in the ocean? Was it the ones on Earth or in the land? Or was it the ones in the rivers and the streams and the freshwater ponds? And this one, again, data literacy. We're trying to see, can we learn how to observe and interpret graphs? Can we tell a story from the graph? Well, how much did the freshwater species in the tropical zone change? So let's go back. Which one is the tropical zone? Look at this graph. Which one is, we were looking at the freshwater, I believe. No. Here, freshwater. So tropical, freshwater. Identify tropical. Identify which one corresponds to fresh water within the tropical, and then take a look at where it started. Take a look at where it ended. Now look at the average annual population change. What is the difference between where it started and where it ended? And that difference is the answer to this question. Lastly, remember, and I'll give you a hint because I'm trying to guide how you see the world. You may think, wow, yes, there's a lot of animals that have died. And in the news will say, oh my gosh, we have to save the turtles, ban all the straws. Please, no more plastic straw. I mean, no more plastic straws. Every animal is dying. Wait a second. Some animals are dying. Some animals are not. Some animals are actually surviving and thriving. Remember, we talked about this. We talked about evolution. We talked about, can I see, let me go back here. I should have had this open from the beginning. Interactive. I hope I can have my image here from the notebook. Oh no. I'll have to edit this video. Oh, okay. So, finally, just to finish up. Look, sometimes some species survive and some others die. It doesn't mean that the entire world is burning down in flames. So, be careful what you say in this final question. Just because some animals have been dying doesn't mean that what these scientists have been saying is true, that the populations have halved in the past 40 years. So with that said, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.